Welcome to an extraordinary story that unravels the web of deceit, betrayal, and the ultimate price of living a double life. Before we dive into this heart-wrenching and suspenseful tale, please take a moment to subscribe for more stories that captivate, move, and leave you reflecting on the unpredictable nature of human relationships. Now, let's take a journey back to 2009 in the heart of Mumbai, where the lives of two seemingly perfect individuals were intertwined in a union that would lead to both love and ultimate tragedy. Buckle up, because this story is one that will keep you at the edge of your seat. It all began in 2009 when Raghav Sharma and Meera Sharma met through a family-arranged setup, a practice that remains cherished and respected in many Indian families. Raghav, born in 1980, had carved out a prestigious career in the bustling construction industry of Mumbai. His reputation as a determined, intelligent, and decisive businessman preceded him, earning him the admiration and respect of his peers and family. He was, without a doubt, the sturdy pillar that upheld the family's honor and well-being. In contrast, Meera, born in 1982, was the embodiment of traditional values and gentle grace. She hailed from a middle-class family that raised her with love, cultural richness, and moral principles. Her upbringing had molded her into a self-sacrificing and devoted woman who always prioritized her loved ones above all else. Her family, deeply rooted in the values of love, respect, and Indian cultural heritage, took pride in her gentle and nurturing nature. Raghav and Meera's union was not merely the joining of two souls, but the merging of two families that held similar views on culture, religion, and life. It was these shared principles that led the couple to agree to marriage after just a few initial meetings, even though their bond had yet to blossom into deep romance. They believed that love, built on respect and trust, would flourish over time, a belief common in arranged marriages. Their wedding was an event to remember. Held in Mumbai, it was a lavish and traditional celebration that brought together family, friends, and Raghav's business associates. The festivities lasted for several days, filled with joy, vibrant colors, and the intricate rituals of a Hindu wedding. There were pre-wedding ceremonies like the Mendi, where intricate henna designs were painted on the bride's hands, and the Sangeet, a night of music and dance that celebrated the coming together of two families. Meera, dressed in a resplendent red bridal sari, was the picture of traditional Indian beauty, exuding elegance and serenity. Raghav, in his white and gold sherwani, appeared confident and mature, a man ready to embrace the responsibilities of married life. To everyone present, they were the epitome of the perfect couple, and their union symbolized hope, stability, and prosperity. Their married life began on a harmonious note. Meera embraced her role as a devoted wife, managing the household with grace and care. She supported Raghav's ambitions, ensuring that their home was a sanctuary where he could find peace after long, exhausting days at work. Raghav, on his part, continued to build his career with unrelenting dedication. His construction company flourished, and his frequent business travels took him across India to secure new projects and partnerships. In 2011, their joy multiplied when Meera gave birth to a beautiful daughter, whom they named Anaya. The name, meaning one of a kind, was a testament to the boundless love and dreams that Raghav and Meera had for their precious child. The birth of Anaya brought a new dimension to their lives, filling their home with laughter and the sweet chaos that only a child can bring. Meera, ever the nurturing mother, poured her heart into raising Anaya and managing the household. She became the glue that held the family together, creating a warm and loving environment. Raghav was proud of his family and worked even harder to ensure a comfortable future for them. His career continued to soar, and with it came the increasing demands of his job. Business trips became more frequent, and his time at home grew shorter. Despite the challenges, Mira never complained. She understood the sacrifices Raghav had to make for their family's well-being. As the years went by, however, Mira began to sense a change in Raghav. His business trips became longer, and he often seemed distracted and distant when he was home. The loving conversations they once shared had dwindled into short, mundane exchanges, and long silences began to replace the warmth that had once characterized their relationship. Mira tried to brush off her growing unease, convincing herself that Raghav's behavior was due to work stress. But soon, more troubling signs emerged. Raghav started taking phone calls late at night, stepping out of the room and speaking in hushed tones. He guarded his phone like a precious secret, never letting Mira touch it or see his messages. This was new, and it gnawed at Mira's heart, fueling a sense of dread that she couldn't shake. Yet, she clung to hope, believing in the love and trust that had once defined their marriage. Her attempts to ignore the signs only became harder as Raghav's excuses for his absences grew more vague and unconvincing. He seemed to be drifting further away, and Mira's intuition told her that something was terribly wrong. Then, in mid-2015, Mira's world was turned upside down by a single phone call. On a seemingly ordinary afternoon, her phone rang. The voice on the other end belonged to a woman who spoke with unsettling familiarity about Raghav. The woman referred to him as her husband, a term that sent shivers down Mira's spine. Shocked and confused, Mira ended the call, her mind racing with questions. Who was this woman, and why did she speak of Raghav in such an intimate manner? The seeds of suspicion that had been planted in Mira's heart now grew into a relentless storm of doubt and fear. Her once unwavering trust in her husband began to crack, and she knew she had to uncover the truth. That night, while Raghav was fast asleep, Mira did something she had never done before. She went through his phone. Her hands trembled as she searched through his messages and call history. What she found confirmed her worst fears. There in his contacts was a woman named Priya. The messages between Raghav and Priya were far from professional. They were filled with sweet, affectionate words and romantic promises. Mira's heart shattered as she read them. The frequent, late-night calls and the messages of love left no doubt that Raghav was having an affair. Overwhelmed by the betrayal, Mira felt as though the ground beneath her had been pulled away. Yet, despite the evidence, she needed to know the full extent of Raghav's deception. She decided not to confront him immediately. Instead, she observed his behavior more closely, hoping to gather more information. In the following weeks, Mira noticed that Raghav frequently traveled to Gujarat. Each time he left, the calls and messages between him and Priya increased. This pattern solidified Mira's suspicion that Priya was more than just a lover. Determined to find out the truth, Mira made a bold decision. She would follow Raghav on one of his business trips. Her heart pounded with fear and anxiety as she secretly trailed him to Gujarat. What she discovered there was far beyond anything she had imagined. Through Raghav's acquaintances and her own discreet inquiries, Mira learned that Priya was not just a mistress. She was Raghav's second wife, whom he had secretly married in 2013. To make matters worse, they even had a child together. Mira's world collapsed around her. The man she had devoted her life to had built an entirely separate existence behind her back. Mira felt as though she had been living in a cruel illusion. Every loving memory, every shared dream, every promise Raghav had made to her now felt tainted. Her heart was broken, not just by the betrayal, but by the realization that her entire marriage had been a facade. The pain was suffocating, but Mira knew she couldn't remain silent any longer. She had to confront Raghav, but she also knew that she needed to be prepared. gathering every piece of evidence she had. The text messages, call records, and details of Raghav's secret marriage. Mira braced herself for the confrontation. She knew it wouldn't be easy, but she also knew she could no longer live in a web of lies. On August 15th, 2015, Raghav returned home from yet another business trip. He immediately sensed that something was different. Mira, who usually greeted him with warmth, stood in the living room with a steely resolve in her eyes. Her heart raced, but her voice was steady as she began the confrontation she had been rehearsing in her mind. Without hesitation, Mira demanded the truth about Priya. She presented the damning evidence, her voice filled with a pain that cut through the air like a knife. Raghav tried to dismiss her accusations, claiming Priya was just a work acquaintance. But Mira was no longer willing to accept his lies. She had every piece of evidence she needed, and she laid it all out before him. Realizing he had been caught, Raghav switched tactics. He begged for forgiveness, claiming that his relationship with Priya was a mistake. "Mira, I love you," he pleaded. "I love our family. I don't want to lose you." But his words fell on deaf ears. The trust they had built over the years was shattered, and Mira could no longer believe him. The argument escalated, with Mira unleashing years of pent-up hurt and anger. She accused Raghav of destroying everything they had built together, of betraying her in the most unforgivable way. Tears streamed down her face as she demanded accountability, and the pain in her voice only made Raghav more desperate. As Mira threatened to leave him and expose his betrayal to their families and society, Raghav's fear turned into panic. He felt trapped, surrounded by the consequences of his actions. The thought of losing everything, his reputation, his career, his carefully constructed double life, pushed him to the brink of desperation. In a moment of uncontrollable rage, Raghav grabbed a nearby wooden stick. His vision blurred with anger and fear, and before he could think, he struck Mira on the head. The blow was forceful and sudden, and Mira crumpled to the floor. Blood pooled beneath her, staining the floor in a horrific testament to the violence that had erupted. For a moment, silence enveloped the room. Raghav stood frozen, staring at Mira's lifeless body, his mind blank with shock. He knelt beside her, shaking her, but there was no response. The realization of what he had done hit him like a tidal wave, but there was no time to process the horror. He had to act and fast. Panic coursed through Raghav as he tried to think of a way to cover up his crime. He decided to stage the scene to look like a burglary gone wrong. He hastily moved furniture around, opened windows, and made a clumsy attempt to make the house look ransacked. But his efforts were haphazard and poorly executed. With his heart pounding, Raghav called the police, trying to sound frantic and grief-stricken. "Please come quickly. My wife, she's been murdered. Someone broke in and killed her," he cried, his voice shaking. He hoped that the police would believe his story and that he could escape the consequences of his actions. But deep down, Raghav knew that things were far from simple. The weight of his guilt and the reality of his crime pressed heavily on him as he waited for the police to arrive. The Mumbai police arrived swiftly, only to be met with a scene that raised more questions than answers. Mira lay lifeless on the floor, her head wound severe and unmistakable. Raghav, though trying to appear devastated, failed to convince the seasoned investigators. The supposed signs of a break-in were unconvincing. The windows and doors showed no signs of forced entry, and the disarray in the house seemed staged. Detectives quickly realized that Mira's fatal wound was too severe to have been inflicted by a random burglar. It appeared to have been caused by a deliberate, forceful strike with a hard object. Moreover, there were no signs of a struggle, suggesting that Mira had been attacked by someone she knew and trusted. As they questioned Raghav, his story began to unravel. His demeanor was too calm, too composed for a man who had just lost his wife in a violent attack. Neighbors reported hearing a heated argument from the house that night, but had heard no sounds of a break-in. The inconsistencies in Raghav's account only deepened the investigators' suspicions. The police expanded their investigation, examining Raghav and Mira's phones. What they discovered was the turning point in the case. The messages and call records between Raghav and Priya revealed an ongoing affair filled with promises of a future together. Further digging uncovered the shocking truth. Raghav had married Priya in a secret ceremony in Gujarat, and they had a child together. The revelation of Raghav's double life painted a damning picture. His affair and secret marriage gave him a strong motive to silence Mira once she discovered the truth. The autopsy confirmed that Mira's injury was consistent with a violent blow from a hard object, further implicating Raghav. When confronted with the mounting evidence, Raghav's composure crumbled. The police presented the call records, witness testimonies, and the marriage certificate that exposed his lies. Faced with the undeniable truth, Raghav confessed, admitting that he had killed Mira in a fit of rage and desperation. Raghav Sharma was arrested and charged with murder. The trial in late 2015 was a harrowing experience for both families, who were left to grapple with the devastating consequences of Raghav's actions. The prosecution presented a strong case, detailing the evidence of his affair, the staged crime scene, and the violence that led to Mira's tragic death. Raghav's defense tried to argue that his actions were not premeditated, claiming he had acted in a moment of uncontrollable anger. But the court was unmoved. The evidence of his deceit, betrayal, and the calculated cover-up painted a picture of a man who had committed a cold and cruel act. In the end, Raghav was sentenced to life imprisonment. The case left a deep scar on both Mira's and Raghav's families, a painful reminder of the cost of betrayal and the irreversible consequences of living a life built on lies. This concludes our story, a chilling reminder of how trust can be shattered and lives forever changed. If you found this story gripping, don't forget to subscribe for more content that delves deep into the complexities of the human heart and the decisions that define our destinies. Thank you for watching.